And now on the Joe Bev Show, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in the Walter Patterson matter. Johnny Dollar.
My name is Elgin, Mr. Dollar. Claims Division, Delaware Mutual Life.
What can I do for you, Mr. Elgin?
Would you be free to work on a case for us?
I might be. What kind of case is it?
It involves a man named Patterson and a claim that we paid off to the tune of $40,000.
Uh-huh.
I see Patterson died in 1947. All of the routine procedures were followed, and there was no reason for not honoring the policy at the time.
And there's reason now, Mr. Elgin?
That's for you to find out, Mr. Dollar. A lifelong friend of the deceased swears he's still alive and kicking.
I'll take the case, Mr. Elgin.
The transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, Hartford, Connecticut. To Controller's Office, Delaware Mutual Insurance Company, Wilmington, Delaware. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Walter Patterson matter. Expense account item 1, $78.14, fare and incidentals between Hartford and Wilmington. I arrived at 2:30 in the afternoon, found a room at the Chesapeake Hotel, stowed my luggage, and went directly to your headquarters, Mr. Elgin. Of course, reports like this come across my desk every so often. If I ran all of them down, I'd get nothing else done. And 10 times out of 10, the report's wrong. Yes, I know all that, but this report bears investigation. I can remember 3 years after my father's death, I saw a man on a subway train in New York who, well, he looked exactly as I remember my dad. I finally walked up to him and asked him his name. The minute he spoke, I lost the impression altogether. I think a lot of people have had the same kind of experience at one time or another. Don't you? Yeah, I suppose so. We all have a double somewhere, they say. An old friend saw this Patterson? Yes, in Tucson, Arizona. Her name's Virginia Collier. I'd have her here now to talk to you, but unfortunately she's en route to Europe. I see. 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Collier stopped off in Tucson on her way back from Los Angeles. She claims that she saw Patterson, as big as life, sitting in a bar at the El Conquistador Hotel. Is that all? No. She managed to talk to him. He told her his name was Yoler, William Yoler. Mrs. Collier says he pretended not to know her at all. I wired authorities in Tucson to run a check on William Yoler. In their conversation, Yoler told Mrs. Collier that he had been born and raised in Tucson, but from all we could gather, he never bought property or made a financial negotiation there until June of 1947. Wait, Mrs. Collier, do you consider her reliable? That's another point. If it had been anybody else, I don't think I would have bothered making even a cursory check. But Mrs. Collier practiced law here for a number of years and sat on the circuit bench for 2 terms. She is most reliable, and she knew Walter Patterson all of his life. Okay, go on. The next thing is that Mrs. Collier distinctly remembered Patterson's limp. He was a pilot in the war. One leg was about half an inch shorter than the other from injuries he received in a crash. Mrs. Collier said that this man Yoler has an identical limp. Well, with the similarities of features, it'd be easy for her to imagine that part, don't you think? Yes, and I know what you're driving at, but there are some other things too. Mrs. Collier asked Yoler if he had gone to Amherst. That's where Patterson went to college. Yoler denied it, said he was a Notre Dame graduate. That didn't check out either. Now we can assume that William Yoler merely looks a great deal like the late Walter Patterson. and told some inaccuracies in a conversation at a bar. Or we can assume he is really Walter Patterson, covering rather badly in the face of an old acquaintance who recognized him. At any rate, this is Mrs. Collier's entire statement, duly notarized.
All right.
Now, this is a copy of the original policy on Patterson.
How long with this company?
Since 1936. Started with two $5,000 policies and built up to the master over a period of years.
I see.
Here.
I thought it was $40,000. This is only $20,000.
Patterson was killed in a plane crash, and we paid double indemnity on the accident clause.
Oh.
It happened in April of 1947. Patterson took off in a rented plane one day and crashed out in that bay. There somewhere. Part of the plane wreckage was recovered, but his body was never found. The appellate court declared him legally dead, after the usual 3-year waiting period. April 5th, 1950. Patterson's lawyer filed claim for the widow April 17th, and we issued a full check April 30th of that year.
I'd like to see the investigator's report on the details of that.
Surely, right in this folder. Now, this is the last picture ever taken of Patterson, and these are his vital statistics. I didn't know exactly what you wanted to do first, but I thought that they might prove helpful. If I had a body to exhume, it could all be handled rather simply.
Patterson's widow's the beneficiary?
Yes, Gloria Ann Patterson. Incidentally, she knows nothing about this report yet.
Oh? Pictures and fingerprints aren't stock material in an insurance file.
Mr. Brennan, Patterson's lawyer, gathered them for me. He's been very helpful.
Huh. Has Patterson's widow been checked?
As far as the money goes, she simply banked it in a savings account. It hasn't been touched at all.
Well, on the face of it, that would eliminate the probability of any fraud on her part for the moment.
Yes, it would.
Well, I want to look this over.
Sure.
You'll keep in touch with me, won't you?
You bet.
I spent the remainder of the day in and about Wilmington, talking to the principals connected with the plane crash death of Walter Patterson. Number 1 was the radio operator who had spoken to him last. Number 2, a mechanic at the flying field. And number 3, Lieutenant James Craigson, Coast Guard, who had conducted the search in the bay. See attached statement. We both agreed that an unreported rescue was possible, but highly improbable. And when I left for Tucson that night, I was more or less convinced that all I would find there would be a lot of desert sunshine. Expense account item 2, $202.25, plane fare and incidental expenses from Wilmington to Tucson. I settled for a motel room out by the Veterans Hospital, slept 6 hours, then looked up Sergeant Tyler at the police station.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Dollar. What can I do for you?
Mr. Elgin said you sent him a little information on William Yoler. I was wondering if you have anything to add to that, Sergeant.
No, nothing much. Of course, I don't know what you folks are driving at exactly. I just checked up on him a little bit.
Well, he resembles a man who's supposed to be dead, and that's why I'm here.
I see. Well, there's nothing much I can add to what I sent Mr. Elgin, Dollar. Yoler's never been in any trouble around here. Gets along fine.
You were the only one who checked out the residency business?
Yeah. According to vitals, Yoler wasn't born in this state. And like I said, no one knew him around here until 5 years ago.
What does he do?
Nothing. Always seemed to have plenty of money. Bought a nice little house out in Sierra Vista. Paid $42,000 for it.
Is he married?
No. Lives alone there. Putters around with clay and painting.
You know if he flies?
Couldn't tell you that. He might.
How about his friends?
Lots of them, Mr. Dollar. A little town like this, you get to know people fast. Really, you folks might be spending a lot of money for nothing. Will Yoler doesn't seem like the kind of feller who's hiding out from anybody.
I agree. But I'll have to talk to him anyhow.
Yeah, well, here's his address. Sure a pretty day, isn't it?
It sure is.
Mr. Yoler?
Yeah? Who are you?
My name's Dollar. I'm an insurance investigator.
Oh, well, come on in.
Thanks.
Take a chair. Anywhere. What's on your mind?
Just making a routine check, Mr. Yoler. Thought perhaps you could help me.
Well, what about?
Running down a report in my home office. Tell me, do you happen to remember a few days ago when you were out at the El
Conquistador Hotel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out there all the time. What about it? I steal something?
No. You met a woman named Collier.
Did I?
Yes. It was at the bar. You had a drink with her.
Well, I might have. But I still don't understand.
Well, I know it seems confusing. Maybe this'll help. Here, take a look at this.
Huh.
Well, you'll agree you look a great deal like the man in the picture.
Yeah, I suppose I do. Well, I'll be darned. I do at that.
That's why I'm here. You see, the company I represent insured the man in this picture for quite an amount of money. He was lost in a plane crash 5 years ago. The Mrs. Collier who saw you here thought you were him.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm not. You want to smoke?
Yeah, thanks. She was a lifelong friend of the man, Mr. Yoler. I have her sworn statement about the identity.
Well?
What years did you go to Notre Dame?
I didn't go to Notre Dame. What is this?
Well, that's what you told Mrs. Collier.
Oh, now I remember that woman. It was a Sunday. Oh, yeah. I might have told her anything, Mr. Dollar, you know. Anything. She was one of those inquisitive types, you know. I never could make out what was on her mind. Now I get it. She thought I was this man.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Did you go to college?
Yeah. Tulane. It got out in 36.
You haven't lived in Arizona all your life, then. Where else have you lived?
Say, I don't want to be unpleasant, but do you have any right to ask me questions like this?
No, but you'll help me a lot if you answer them, Mr. Yoler.
Well, why not? I lived in Cincinnati and Buffalo, around the country. I came here a few years ago for my health. Well, I got a little asthma that bothers me.
Ever been married?
Once, in 1944. It didn't last very long. What was this fella's name?
Walter Patterson.
Where'd he live?
Wilmington, Delaware.
I've never been there.
If you had, you'd been mistaken for him, I'll tell you that.
Now, I can see your point there, all right. Well, what else do you want to know?
You in a hurry? I can come back later if...
Well, not exactly. I have to go downtown today is all. Look, you seem like a nice fella, but it makes me uncomfortable answering these questions of yours.
And I appreciate the time you've given me already, Mr. Yoler. Please understand that it's a matter of identity.
Well, you know who I am. I just told you.
That's true. Now I wonder if you'd mind telling me...
I don't like this business much. Is there any way we can eliminate it? I have a birth certificate and other papers, and you can have them and make photostats if you like.
Well, that's very kind of you, Mr. Yoler.
They're in my safety deposit box at the bank. I'll get them for you this afternoon.
Okay. My job is to check them.
Sure. Okay by me. How do you like Tucson?
A lot different than Connecticut.
I'll bet.
You say you're going downtown this afternoon?
Yeah.
The birth certificate and whatever else you have will help a lot, but I wonder if I could ask another favor.
What?
The most positive identification would be from fingerprints.
Oh?
Mr. Yoler, I'm not so much interested in who you are, but simply in proving that you're not Walter Patterson. If you volunteer a set of prints, it'd save me a great deal of digging around. Could you drop by at the police station?
Sure, why not?
That'll be fine.
Nice to meet you.
Same here. Well, if he was trying to cover something, it certainly wasn't apparent from his conversation or his actions. He was almost too anxious to help me. By 5 o'clock, I had made reservations to return to Wilmington because the set of fingerprints, see attached, which Mr. Yoler made at the Tucson police station later that day in no way matched the right thumb and index prints recorded in your file for Walter Patterson. In short, the report seemed erroneous. William Yoler may not be William Yoler, but he certainly was not Walter Patterson. Johnny Dollar.
Will Yoler, Mr. Dollar.
Oh yeah, thanks for the prints.
I've got to talk to you, Dollar.
Something wrong?
Do you know how to get to the Arizona Inn?
I can find it.
I'll be there in 20 minutes.
From the tone of his voice, I felt compelled to get there in half that time. I sat down at the bar and ordered a drink and waited for him to show up. An hour later, I was still waiting. I called his house 3 times and received no answer. I began to worry. Finally, I left word with the bartender and took a cab out to the house. I arrived there at 8:35. There were no lights on, and apparently no one was around. I walked up to the front door and found it partially open. Yoler! Yoler! Mr. Yoler!
Sergeant Thomas speaking.
Johnny Dollar, Sergeant.
Hi, how's it going? I thought you were leaving.
Not for a while. Not for a while, Sergeant. I'm at Will Yoler's house. He's been murdered. It turned out to be a long night. Sergeant Tyler and several homicide officers arrived at the murder scene within a matter of minutes and got right down to the matter at hand. Yoler had been beaten to death. There were signs of a violent struggle having taken place all over the house. Kitchen, bathroom, living room. As far as the police could determine, nothing was missing. The motive, the name of the killer, and any probable suspects were all up in the air as Sergeant Tyler drove me back to my motel room.
Whole thing's a mess, Dollar.
I wish I could help you straighten it out.
Yeah. You sure he didn't say anything else to you on the phone?
Well, just asked me to meet him. I admit he sounded frightened, worried about something. But I don't get it. Our business was all finished. He wasn't the man I was looking for.
You going to be around for a while?
If I can help you, I'll stick around, sure. But otherwise, I'll get back to Wilmington as soon as I can.
Like to have you around. For a day or two.
You have a particular reason, Sergeant?
Yes, I do.
What?
I want to find me a killer, and I think you can help. Will Yoler lived a quiet life here up until yesterday. Then you went out and talked to him and sent him down for those fingerprints, and now he's been murdered.
There it is.
Oh.
You think I had something to do with that?
I think the same as you're thinking. Something you had something to do with.
Could be a coincidence.
Peh. Nobody walks into a man's house, fights with him, breaks up furniture and lamps, beats him to death without an awful lot of noise about it.
Well, the wind was pretty strong.
I don't care if a hurricane was blowing. When people fight like went on there was noise. They yelled at each other, cussed each other out, screamed, cried, and plain grunted and groaned. All noisy. Somebody heard something. Somebody saw something. Somebody saw someone. My men will cover every house in Sierra Vista if they have to turn up a witness. Bound to be somebody somewhere.
The dogged Sergeant Tyler turned out to be 100% correct. In fact, 300% correct. For by 11 o'clock the following morning, his men had located 3 different people who had information about the brutal murder of William Yoler. The first was a man named Randall, who had driven by Yoler's about 7:30 in the evening. He had seen Yoler standing in the doorway talking to a large, powerfully built man. The second party was a paper boy who had come to collect his money. While he was waiting at the door, he saw that Mr. Yoler and another man were having a drink. His description only said that the man was tall, but the third witness was the best.
I take a walk every evening after dinner. It's the nicest part of the day.
And you were walking last night, Mrs. Lucas?
Yes, I told the officers everything.
Would you tell us, please, Mrs. Lucas?
I walked past Mr. Yoler's house on my way down to the arroyo.
What time was that, Mrs. Lucas?
Between 7:30 and 8. And I saw Mr. Yoler standing in the front of the house talking to this man. I spoke to him, and he spoke to me.
Can you describe the man he was talking to?
Yes, I saw him very well. He was a very tall man. Bigger than Mr. Yoler, and Mr. Yoler's always struck me as a big man.
Go on.
This man was a good 2 inches taller. He had on a top coat, a tweed one, and he had a hat in his hand. His hair was red.
How old would you say?
Not over 40.
Have you ever seen him before?
No. I noticed him when I walked by on my way down the arroyo, as I said. And then when I was coming back, I could see through the window. He was still there.
Were the lights on in the house?
Oh, yes, in the living room. And the porch light was still on, too.
Would you know this man if you saw him again, Mrs. Lucas?
Well, yes, I would. I'm sure I would. He was so big.
Was there a car out in front of Mr. Yoler's house?
I didn't notice one. There could have been.
Is there a bus service that runs up to?
Oh, no! Everyone who lives here in the arroyo has to have a car. No buses up here at all.
Sergeant Tyler issued an all-points bulletin according to the description given by the witnesses. In the meantime, his men checked the local cab companies and found out that one of the drivers had carried a fare to William Yoler's house at 6:30 the previous evening. The cab driver verified Mrs. Lucas' description of the suspect and the important information that he had picked up the suspect at the airport. When that was checked, it was found the man had arrived on a plane from the east at 5:45 in the afternoon. He had used the name Roger Bales. But except for a small case against him, the whole thing was still very confusing from our point of view. Expense account, item 3, $6.50. Long-distance telephone charges to your office, as much on the phone.
It certainly seems strange, all right. Do you have any ideas what it's all about?
Up to the moment, we're just sure a man named Roger Bales flew in last night and murdered William Yoler. If they could pick up Bales, I might be able to tell you a little more. But he could be anywhere in the country by now.
Well, I know you're staying on at the request of the police, so I won't press you on the matter. But as far as the insurance company's concerned, it's really none of our business, is it?
That's right, Mr. Elgin.
$1?
Hold on.
Yeah. Answer from Washington on your wire.
Yeah?
Here.
Let's see. Mr. Elgin.
Yes?
It is our business after all.
Huh?
The War Department has a better sample of Walter Patterson's prints than you gave me. They check out.
Slow down. I still don't understand.
Mr. Elgin, I wired a sample of Yoler's prints to the War Department this morning for a positive identification. They just answered me. Yoler was Walter Patterson.
Oh.
Where did you get those prints that were in the file you gave me?
Mr. Brennan, Patterson's lawyer gave them to me, from a pilot's license. I'd better call Mr. Brennan.
Don't you dare.
Well, what can I do to help you, Dollar?
Don't open your mouth. I'll handle it when I get there.
Okay, Mr. Dollar.
I'll follow you in a day or so, Dollar. I have to wait for papers.
It became apparent for both of us, once the dead man's true identity had been established, that the bulk of the case would be concluded not in Tucson, but in Wilmington. Expense account item 4, $42.85, expenses while in Tucson. And item 5, same as item 2, traveling expenses from Tucson to Wilmington. I arrived at 10:15 in the evening, called you, obtained lawyer Brennan's home address, and went directly there. Brennan, I just flew in from Tucson, Arizona. I'm an insurance investigator. Oh.
Well, good night.
Gloria, you'll be interested in what Mr. Dollar has to say.
What? I don't understand, Bob.
Let's go in the living room. Come on, dear. Are you sure you want Mrs. Patterson here? Yeah. Gloria, I didn't get these bruises falling down a flight of stairs. I got them in a fight.
What?
I flew to Tucson the day before yesterday to see Walter. Yes, Walter has been alive all this time.
Bob!
This is only for her benefit, Dollar. I'll tell it just once. When you get me in court, it'll be different. How'd it happen, Brennan? Gloria, Walt didn't die in that crash. He was picked up in the bay by a fishing boat on its way to Florida. The first port they came into was Charleston. He phoned me long distance from there and told me all about it. That was 10 days after we all thought he was dead. Gloria, it was his idea. You got to believe that.
What was his idea?
He hated you. You know how often he asked for a divorce? That was the idea he had when he phoned from Charleston. He said it was his chance to get away from you. He knew how I had always felt about you, and he said I could have you for a price. You've been supporting him wherever he's been since then. $25,000 a year. Regular monthly payments. I could afford anything for you, Gloria.
Did he tell you he hated me? Did he?
He just wanted away from you, from everything. The war changed him that way. About the day before yesterday, the man at the insurance company called up making inquiries, so I didn't know if he'd seen an investigator out there or not. But I gave him a lot of information and material that, well, that should have helped throw you off. It threw me off, especially the fingerprints. Mr. Dollar can tell you, Gloria, how Walt didn't want to be here with you. Isn't that right, Dollar? Didn't he do everything he could to make you think his name was Yola? Yes. You see, Gloria?
Where is he now?
He's dead, Mrs. Patterson. Truly dead now.
Oh.
That's all I have to say, Dollar. People saw you, Brennan. 4 can identify you. Who? People at the airport, a cab driver, a neighbor, a boy who was collecting papers. Oh.
You fought with Walter?
Yes. It was him or me, Gloria. He phoned me 2 days ago and said that the police had been checking up on him. I told him what it was all about and not to get scared. But he was scared and got a plane the first chance he had. What did you argue about? Apparently you had been there that morning. He was going to tell you the truth and claim that he had amnesia. He said he had a date to meet you. You didn't answer my question. What do you mean I didn't answer it? I just told you he was going to blow the whole thing.
Oh, Bob.
All I wanted was to get out of this. He didn't want you, I did. Last week you said you decided to marry me. It took you 5 years to decide that. And it took him one lousy afternoon to decide he was coming back to you. I realize that the confusion as set down in this report is worthless as evidence both to the police and your insurance company. The proof that Brennan killed Patterson will be a matter for the courts to decide.
The proof that Gloria Ann Patterson is guilty or not guilty of a fraudulent claim is another matter for you to decide. At any rate, she is a widow now. And I personally am convinced that she had no complicity in the matter of claims, murder, or collusion. It'll be a long time before I forget the look on her face when Brennan was telling it. Expense account, item 6, same as item 1. Expenses from Wilmington to Hartford. Expense account total, $610.13. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in the Walter Patterson matter on the Joe Bev Show. I'm Joe Bev. We'll have yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in the Larson Arson matter next time. Plus the Uncle Dunkle fable, Britty the Starfish, and Laurel and Hardy meet Robin Hood. That's next time on the Joe Bev Show. If you like what you hear, go to Amazon and search for Joe Bev. And please subscribe to us on Facebook and YouTube.